basilisk venom, widow's blood, wolf's bane, essence of nightshade, sweet sleep, tears of Lys, demon's dance, blind eye.
I think you have made your point, Grand Maester. You have a lot of poison in your store.
Had, Prince Oberyn. My stores were plundered.
So, who stole those poisons? What an interesting little scene. We'll get to that in a minute. In the meantime, hello everyone. Thanks for sticking with me. Today we're going to go over one of my favorite fan theories. Was Tywin poisoned by someone? Most people think the culprit is Oberyn Martell, but it could have been someone else. The theory is forward enough. Oberyn or someone else at some point in time slipped Tywin some poison. But is there any truth to it? We'll go over some evidence for the theory, give you our thoughts, and then let you decide. Well, the first place to start is with Oberyn Martell and his introduction. It should be noted that the invite to Joffrey's wedding is meant for his brother Doran Martell, and not for Oberyn. So why did he decide to go to King's Landing? Well, as Oberyn tells us himself, the answer is revenge. We know this not only from his opening scene, but from other threats Oberyn delivers, such as reminding Tyrion that his father may not live forever. We also know revenge is the goal from later evidence we're given by other Dornish, such as Doran. He states that he has been working toward the Lannister downfall for a long time, and that he wants to take everything Tywin holds dear from him before he kills him. Doran states that he worked closely with his brother Oberyn toward this end, and it's clear that Tywin's death is part of the Dornish plan to strike back. So if the plan is to strike at the Lannisters, and they poisoned Tywin, what poison did they use? Well, given Tywin's death on the toilet, the most likely poison is called widow's blood. It's a poison meant to shut down your bowels and bladder until you rot away in your own excrement. It's cruel and slow acting. It should also be noted that the tears of Lys can also affect your bowels, but for the purpose of this theory, we're just going to go with widow's blood. Now, there are a few strong potential links, and that's why people think that Tywin is poisoned in this way. And of course, the first one is because of where we find him, on a toilet. Now, this is odd because Shay has been brought up to Tywin's bed, and I don't have much experience being an old man, but needing to take a shit before or after intercourse is really strange. So, was he interrupted by a need to go? Was she brought up to meet him and he never got out of the toilet? Or, what have you? We don't know, but it's important to note that George put him on the toilet for a reason, and it should strike you as odd. Another hint he's been poisoned is that Tywin's corpse stinks, noticeably so even though it's prepared for the funeral. It's almost unnatural, and it defies the usual measures that are taken to avoid the stench of decomposition. It's enough that it affects experienced maesters like Pycelle, and even the Silent Sisters who do this type of thing all the time. So it's not normal, and it adds to the notion that something funny is going on. Last, this particular poison would be an interesting play on the popular joke that Tywin Lannister shits gold. It's an irony of causing his death in this fashion, and it shouldn't be lost on the viewer or the reader. I'm sure it's not lost on the poisoner.
Lord Tywin, winter is coming for him. 20,000 Northerners marching south to find out if he really does shit gold.
Now back to Oberyn. So he's got a well-deserved reputation for poison. It's how he earned his nickname the Red Viper, after all. And he also used a slow-acting poison on the mountain during their duel. It's even said he used magic to draw out the suffering. Now I mention this because it's hard to figure out the timing of Tywin's poisoning, if he was actually poisoned at all. As I've said in other theory videos, timing is hard to pinpoint. Oberyn is in King's Landing for a good chunk of time. He's on the small council. He judges Tyrion's trial, so he's got plenty of opportunities. But he doesn't necessarily need to be alone with Tywin to poison him. Joffrey was poisoned in front of everyone, after all. Widow's blood is slow acting. What that means, of course, is hard to say, but it makes the timing even harder to figure out. So, when Tywin's on the toilet, is that the poison far along, in the middle, or just beginning? We don't know. At any rate, Oberyn's recklessness and unpredictability are both hallmarks of his character. And again, he did use that slow-acting poison on the mountain. So who's to say he didn't do that on Tywin? Given the evidence, it's a pretty strong possibility. So why poison Tywin at all? Well, because it's a bit of a win-win for the Dornish, but we'll get back to that in a moment. The most important thing to remember is that although Doran and Oberyn have been plotting for a while, events are out of their control. Could they have predicted the War of the Five Kings, Ned Stark's execution, or Joffrey's death? The Northerners especially are doing phenomenal on the battlefield. If you want to strip Tywin and make him suffer, do you take the chance that Robb Stark will kill him in battle? Who poisoned Joffrey? Do you take the chance that a Northern agent or someone else is going to beat you to the punch? The events in King's Landing, especially Joffrey's death, might have spurred Oberyn to action. He's obviously the more hot-headed of the Martell brothers, and if someone is poisoning off the Lannisters, does he take a chance that he loses his revenge? So why not go for it? If Oberyn is arrested after being discovered, it's almost impossible to prove. His arrest makes sure to inflame the Dornish, and it also allows Oberyn to demand a trial by combat, most likely challenging the Mountain and killing him, getting two birds with one stone, or otherwise easily beating another challenger and proving himself innocent. If Oberyn is undiscovered and Tywin is dead, then Dorne will get over it. If Tywin is dead from poison and Oberyn is discovered and killed or executed, Dorne has an excuse for war or plausible deniability if he prefers peace. He can place the blame squarely on his hot-headed brother if needed. In fact, this is almost exactly what Tywin does when he meets Oberyn on the show, denying involvement in Elya's death and placing the blame on the mountain. Last, if Tywin dies and Oberyn does as well too, then it's still a win for Dorne as the Lannister head of power is removed and the greatest threat to the Dornish gone. But really, recklessness is beside the point because this fits in exactly with the Dornish plan. Tywin has lost almost everything at this point. The Seven Kingdoms are in chaos. Everyone knows Joffrey and Tommen and Myrcella are bastards. They're not going to accept their rule for long. Casterly Rock is broke. Jaime Lannister, the Golden Son, has lost his sword hand and has renounced his inheritance. Dany is coming back with her dragons. The Lannisters will fall apart without Tywin. It's the perfect time to strike, and Tywin knows it. But that's not all. Oberyn makes a near-perfect scapegoat. He even says himself he's glad Tyrion is blamed for Joffrey's death or he'd be sitting in a cell. So if Tywin is in fact poisoned, could someone else have framed Oberyn for it? The next most likely person is Varys, and who better to point us in this direction than George R. R. Martin himself? In an interview with EW on Shae, he says not to forget the part Varys plays in all of this, and that more will be shown in later books. So let's all start with the scene of Shae being in Tywin's bed. What's she doing there? It's quite the shock for a man who is so against wars to have one in his bed. So how did she get there? How long has Tywin been doing this? Was she brought to him in the open or in secret? Given Tywin's rep, it had to be in secret. Varys has already been sneaking Shae in for Tyrion for a while already, and in the books on one of the trips to the whorehouse she's hiding in, he lets loose something crucial. That the tunnel they're using was built in secret for another hand to use a long time ago. Now the only hand this could have been for is for Tywin. That particular whorehouse is new, and since Tywin was the longest serving hand of the king at that time, he would have been the only one to make this request and see it to its completion. It also explains Shae's presence, with Tywin secretly having always indulged in whores in his downtime. So that's a little hint, but why Varys? Who else has ease of the castle like he does? Someone had to have stolen those poisons after all. But more importantly, we already know that he's actively involved in sowing chaos. We can remember back to that scene in Season 1 with Illyrio and the wolf, and how he was talking about not being ready. He's working on making the journey over and the conquest of Westeros easy for Dany, and this has been his goal for quite some time. In the books, it's also Varys who leads Tyrion to Tywin's chamber, and he does a very poor job of telling him not to seek revenge. He does such a poor job that he gives Tyrion almost exact directions, and he might as well have told him where to find the crossbow bolt. If you read it in the book, it pretty much sounds like the Westerosi equivalent of stop, no, don't, please don't do that. In addition to this, there's also a Highgarden coin left in Tyrion's cell that Cersei discovers. It's the perfect thing to set the Lannisters and Tyrells at odds, and something that points to Varys more than any other character. We know he has free run of the Black Cells, and it wouldn't make sense for the Tyrells or Littlefinger to leave it behind if they did in fact poison Tywin, like they did with Joffrey. So why would Varys do this? Well, just besides the general chaos, things are also out of his control. Just like with Oberyn and the Dornish, he doesn't know who poisoned Joffrey. We have the benefit of hindsight knowing it was the Tyrells and Littlefinger. He doesn't. So he may have had to move forward with plans, before things got too out of control. And especially if Tyrion and the Red Viper are now out of the picture, the blame could easily fall to Varys. We already know that Cersei is unstable, and she's seen that Varys and Tyrion have a little bit of a relationship there. So is he really going to take that chance? Or is he going to go ahead and plant Shae in Tywin's bedchamber and lead Tyrion up there to make sure that he's enraged to do something crazy? Alright, well, we love this theory as it doesn't change things too much and there's just enough evidence to make it plausible. After all, who's to say it has to be Oberyn and not someone else who's working against the Lannisters? What do you guys think? Do you think it's one of these characters or someone else? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will have more videos out soon, I promise this time. In the meantime, thanks for sticking with me, and everyone have a good one.